Last time I left an entire knit and crochet bandage dress saga unresolved, and I'm back to make it up to you. So where did it all go wrong? Essentially everything needs to be redone. Although I might be able to wing it and it might just work out, I just don't want to take that risk. The waistline has dropped about 3 inches from here down to here, and I'm hoping that changing the gauge of the hook will help a bit with this. So going back to my previous sample, I think that 4mm is a happy medium. Let's get started on the front panel, take 2. Suffice it to say, blood, sweat and tears are the bare minimum on this channel. I was starting the front panel again from scratch with a smaller hook size. If you'd like to find out how I got to this point with Tunisian crochet, definitely check out my previous video here. It's a real hoot and a half, and will fill in any gaps should they need filling. I just want to do a quick comparison between the two panels. This is the new panel with a 4mm hook, and this one is the old panel with the 5mm hook. The stretch with this one is pretty significant, both lengthwise and widthwise. You do come to a point where it just won't go any further. Whereas with the 4mm, there is still some stretch lengthwise, but it's not as much. And widthwise, you come to that point a lot sooner, but that's exactly what I wanted. In the same amount of time that it would take a tortoise carrying a jar of molasses to complete a marathon, I had eventually made a sizable dent in the front panel, and fortunately the rows were looking a little less diagonal and, like the superior state of being, more horizontal. My tension with the pearl rows just isn't going to be that even. And it doesn't look like it's getting better with practice either, so yeah. And here you can definitely see the difference. This fabric is much looser and it hangs a bit differently as well.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's the main difference in length.
It was definitely worth restarting, but to think that I have to finish this and then make another one it's a lot. And here is the before and after. There was a noticeable improvement, and it was nice to see that all the practice was making a difference. Naturally, it was time to unravel my previous work so that I could make more work. Does repurposing your mistakes count as recycling? Because if it does, then why is the world still burning? But a more important question is, are you really making more mistakes if you're using the same yarn? Think about it. Moral gymnastics aside, I'd finally finished the front and it was time to crochet the back. I made sure to crochet this panel with more shaping to contour the body more closely. Now, I think I have some explaining to do. In my last video, I said that I was going to 3D print my childhood fashion dreams into reality, and I really meant it. Apart from the fact that this dress has side seams, I suppose. One could argue that back zipper fastenings are integral to a bandage dress, both aesthetically and in terms of function, but they never appealed to me personally. Before researching for this project, I didn't even realize this dress was a bandage dress, let alone imagine that it had a vertical column at the back, and that is why I'm going to risk it all by adding a side zipper fastening instead. I'm already imagining the potential buckling, and it is absolutely terrifying. However, worrying is nothing more than rehearsing failure, and who needs the practice when failing is so easy? At this stage, I had devoured all of my swatching yarn, and like the offspring of the black lace weaver spider, it was time for this lavender knit crocheter to feast upon the one that came before it.
Mother.
This process was immensely gratifying. It was a physical embodiment of redemption in its purest form. The opportunity to start over, to redo one's mistakes, and all the Ctrl-Z's on all the keyboards in all the world had nothing on this. Maybe it was just a bad pin job, but things weren't exactly looking promising at this stage. In the poetic stylings of Homer Simpson, it's just a little wonky. It's still good. It's still good. It's just a little uneven. It's still good. It's still good. It's just a little curly. It's still good. It's still good. Given that my dress stand isn't a reliable sizing reference, it was near impossible to see how these pieces actually fit before attaching them together, despite the constant referencing of vague body measurements. Everything was very much in the air at this point, but not for much longer. I was going to attach the sides together. For some reason, I completely forgot about the mattress stitch, so I started off with slip stitches. The gap is definitely a bit too large, so I'm going to try the mattress stitch instead. I did think about blocking everything, but after some back and forth, I decided to leave it until later in hopes of saving some time. Unfortunately, since the Tunisian crochet stitch ladders were so thick, pulling everything together and tightening the seam was tough on the yarn. There was also an extreme fishing program playing in the background, and the irony of snapping my own line was not lost. If anything, this was the single most exhilarating sewing experience I'd had in a while. Oh dear. And then I remembered that I had some mercerized cotton thread left over from my fringed bralette project. This mercerized cotton works so much better. And obviously the great thing about the mattress stitch is you can actually use any yarn because you won't be able to see it later. I'm a bit tempted to undo all of this and use this yarn instead. Temptation quickly turned into actualization, and this newfangled synthesis felt like buttering hot toast.
Yummy.
However, despite all the effort, the seam was still a bit uneven, and this was likely due to the two panels not being identical. And so I tried to steam it a little, and that just turned into a rather aggressive pressing, which I know I'm not supposed to do. What you're supposed to do is be patient and block the panels before attaching them. But where there's a should, there's always a shall not. Shortly afterwards, I got on with the finishes. In all honesty, I was growing weary of this project, and if I didn't need to finish it in time for this, I would have set it aside for a later date. But that's what podcasts and YouTube are for, getting you through the tough times, even when they feel like they're all the times. For the halter neck strap, I knit an I-cord, and decided a quarter of the way through that some elastic would be a safe bet in terms of wearability and durability, and before I could even say April 25th is the perfect date, it was time to install the zipper. Except there was a bit of a problem. When I started this project, I found this concealed zipper which, although a little on the short side and not the perfect colour match, still seemed like a contender, until it wasn't. Long story short, the best alternative I could find was this longer zipper, which was unconcealed and an even worse match colour-wise. Of course, none of this even came close to the drama of setting it into the dress itself. But we got there in the end. I think it's a little too short. This is such a bad colour match. I couldn't believe it. Months of on and off trial and error were finally over. It was finally done. It's weird to think that I actually made my childhood fashion dream come true, and all it took was several months and learning a whole other crocheting technique. But was it worth it? And like I set out to answer at the start of this project, should you make a bandage dress continuously by hand out of yarn? Honestly, I'm in way too deep to answer this, so I'll let you be the judge, while I think about all the other things I could have done instead.